early adult years, I had some dangerous and scary experiences. One was a biker who came at me. He was kind of pissed off. He fired a gun, and you could see that flash, and then he put it in my eye. He said, "Thank you for your life." That was pretty scary. And later, I jumped out of a perfectly good airplane 3 times. That was exhilarating. It was like a, "Are you shitting me?" moment. And another time, I wrestled a guy for his gun. You know, I was holding it in his pocket because he wanted to take it out. He was being evicted from the bar and didn't want to go. And that was pretty scary also. But none of them really compared to the night I want to tell you about in Big Sur, California. It was 1970, it was August, I was 20, and my friend Larry was a student at EMU, and he had hitchhiked around the country several times, and I really emulated him. He was one of those radical, rebel, hippie types, studying speech therapy and all. I was working for the phone company. I was climbing poles in Detroit and downriver area. It was time for my vacation. I'd earned after a year and a half. So I'd heard on the radio that there was a rock concert in Nova Scotia. And I said, I'm going to Nova Scotia. So I didn't tell anybody except the guys at work. I prepared my vacation time and bought some things, and then I'm at home packing. And ironically, we would go to Ipsy all the time to see Larry, but Larry never came to see us where we were. So ironically, he shows up at that time that I'm packing this Boy Scout pack bag. And he says, "Scar, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to Nova Scotia." He goes, "No, you're not." I said, "Yeah." He says, "No, I've done this before, and look at what you're doing, Scar. You've got pork and beans, you've got tuna fish, you've got soup." And I said, "But I got this P-38, you know, the military little tin thing." He says, "What are you going to cook it at? Where's your mosquito net? You're going to Nova Scotia. Where's your rain gear?" He says, "You don't know what you're doing. Why don't you come with me to California next week? I've been there, and I'll teach you what to do." And I said, "No, the wheels are in motion. I'm on vacation. I got to go now. I'm leaving tonight." He says, "No, you're not. I'll tell you what. I'll leave tomorrow if you go with me." So I said, "Sure, you know, save my life. Go ahead, I'll let you." So he taught me what to pack, and you know, he says, "Get rid of the cans." And so he taught me a smarter thing to pack, and California doesn't have mosquitoes to speak of. And so he went back to Ipsy, and he bought some food and packed his bag, and he said, "Get a good night's sleep, you're gonna need it." So I did. So I get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and my brother is on his way to work in Allen Park, and he drops me off at I-94 about 7. And I'm in Ipsy by 8:30. I walk into town, I get Larry, and we walk out to the freeway, and we're at the toll booths in Indiana by 2 o'clock, and we're standing. You can't walk through, you gotta get a ride through. And then the professor shows up in his Dodge Mopar, 1976 Dodge Mopar. And he's already got a kid from Kalamazoo in the car, and he says, "I don't need riders, I need drivers." That's us. So we're in the car, and we get through the toll booth, and we're stopping for fuel and vending machines only. He was hurrying back home after a long trip, and by 1 o'clock Sunday morning, we're sitting cross-legged with a bunch of people on this exit ramp in Davis, outside Sacramento. And David comes through David saw us, and he comes up, and he brings a box of crackers, and we're all eating crackers. And then he invites me and Larry to crash with him, and we did that. We crashed on his floor. And then we make it to Berkeley the next day, and there's a big tree Larry knew about. There's a big tree on this mansion lawn, and we snuck underneath it. We camped there for the night without fire that time. We snuck out early in the morning. We get through San Francisco, and that at the time, there were some crazy things going on that scare us even further. You know, Charlie Manson was on trial at that time. The girls were sitting on the road with the tambourines and the swastikas, and they're, "Free Charlie, free Charlie." And we didn't see them, but they were there. They were there when we walked through. Back here in Ypsilanti, John Norman Collins was on trial. He was waiting sentencing at the time. We all know what he did. And then we had seen a movie just, I think it was a year before, where Easy Rider, where Fonda and Hopper picks up Jack Nicholson in his first role, and they're driving through Louisiana. They camp out, and the rednecks come, they chop off Jack's head. They beat the other two senseless. You know, we're thinking, we were probably talking about that. That was a very popular movie for us. And so these things are going through our head as we're hitchhiking through California with crazy people. Everybody knows California's full of crazy people. So we get out of San Francisco, and we get to Muir Beach. We get kicked off the beach, but the ranger drives us up to a World War II bunker that's dotted the coastline, and we slept in there with a bunch of people. And then we make it 250 miles north to Mendocino. And we camp out on the beach there with about 100 people from all over the world. Our neighbors were from Paris, and they couldn't speak English, and they were with their cousin from Brooklyn, and he was their translator. For what that's worth. And if you Google map Mendocino, on this side is a driftwood beach. You can see the drift, you can see where we were. The only beach in Mendocino where there's driftwood. Then you go up over the top, and we fished over here and brought it back and had this huge luau party. But then after 4 days, we had to get out of there, so we headed south, back over the Golden Gate Bridge. And about another 120 miles is Big Sur National Park. And you got the Santa Lucia Mountains on this side and the ocean on that side. That's Highway 1. I think they call it Carlito Way and locally there. But that's the Bixby Creek Bridge. It's like 400 feet by 300 feet. At the bottom is Bixby Creek. Well, Larry knew to get out before the bridge, and we walked inland for about a mile until we get down to Bixby Creek, where the road forked off. And on this side was the road went up, and there was a sign on a gate that said private property. And this one went over the creek and then up into the mountain, and we walked along the creek where he had obviously been before, until we were just hidden. The traffic was up above us, they couldn't see us. And there was a hobo campsite there with a ring of rocks where everybody had been cooking. There was a house foundation where somebody started a house. And by now, 30, 40 years later, the trees are growing up through it, you know. And so we set up our camp and roll out our bedrolls, and we eat. We stopped at a store, and we had bought hot dogs. So we ate a half a package of hot dogs, and we got some fresh bread and stuff. And we probably told all those stories I just told you about scary things in California. And all through the night, as we sat there, that gate would open up and a fancy motorcycle would come in, and then they'd close the gate and drive up the hill. Then a fancy van, you know, with a $10,000 paint job, they'd close the gate and they'd go up, or an Audi or some other fancy car. And there were 30 or 40 vehicles. So we knew there were a bunch of crazy hippies up here partying on this private property. It's the only thing, nobody ever coming out there, just all these rich Californians going on. So we knew they were over there. So it got time for Larry to crash, and so he fell asleep, obviously, because I never heard from him again. And I couldn't sleep, so I was normally smoking 2 packs of Camel Straights a day, but you can't travel with that, so I bought Bugler, and I cut way down. But I had some pre-made, and I had them in my backpack here, and his backpack was there, leaning up against this big tree. So I had tobacco right there, so I'm smoking a cigarette. And I look up, and like that, you know, through the canopy of trees, you can see a million stars, and you can see the silhouette of your hand, I was noticing that. But you can't see anything else. I was going, it's so pitch black down here, I can't see my hand in front of my face. And maybe had another cigarette. And finally, I got bored or tired enough, and so I slid into my bag, and I'm laying there. Trying to sleep. It's probably midnight by now. And then I started hearing something. It was just off to my left, 20 feet, 30 feet at the most. And I'm listening and trying to not believe what I was hearing, like an animal, you know, coyotes or, you know, who's ever out at night, but it's too big, it's people. It's those crazy bastards over there. Or it's the next Charlie Manson, or it's the guy that cut Jack's head off. You know, I had myself just worked up, and my heart was just pounded, like when Dale put that gun right there. Just, and I was afraid, after 10 minutes, he was there. They were there, and they just wouldn't go away. And I didn't know what to do. I'm laying in the bag, I'm trapped in this sleeping bag, and I've got a Swiss hunting knife, if you know what those are. It's a giant jackknife. I think I bought it in Delray at a secondhand store when I was on the job. It's got a spoon, it's got a fork, it's got a leather punch, it's got a little plastic toothpick that comes out. It's got a little tiny blade like that for, like, I don't know, cleaning your fingernails or whatever. And it's got a big jackknife. But the guy that owned it before me tried to open a can of paint or something, you know, and he snapped the tip off, so that might be what was missing. So that, you know, I've got crazy people not far away, and I've got this broken knife with a fork on it, and a flashlight, and I'm trapped in the bag. And I don't want to make a sound, but my heart was just pounding out of my chest. And then it started getting louder, and they're coming at us. And I said, I've got to get out of this goddamn bag. That's all there is to it. And I'm just pounding, and I'm counting. I said, the count of 3, you got to get out of this fucking bag. 1, and when you get out, you got to shine the flashlight 6 feet in the air. He's like 8 feet away. I know it. I could hear him. Shine that light in the air, unzip that bag, and get out behind that tree. 2. Right here, bear. A bear is in my backpack, and he's taking the bread out. Put the knife down, put the flashlight across your arms, and just lay there. That's all you can do. I've read so many bear attack stories. You play dead or be dead. So I laid there for 10 minutes while he ate the sunflower seeds, the dried apricots, the raisins, bread. And he was there for at least 10 minutes. And he was so close I could pet him. He was right here. I could pet him, or I could grab him by the ears and shake him. He was right there. And he knew I was there. And he knew Larry was there. And then I couldn't feel him because he did not touch me, but I sensed it and I heard it. And he got done and he stepped over the top of me and he walked down to the water. And he was there for a while. I could hear him, and then there was no more sound. And so I laid there for, it had to have been a half an hour, because how do I know he's not laid down next to Larry? He couldn't do that. He just ate. And dang bear is here. So I just decided that he's gone. He ate and left. And so I scooted half out of my bag and I grabbed another bugler. And I think we had wood stick matches. I smoked a cigarette and thought about it and started chuckling, and I smoked probably a second one. And then I decided it was time to go to bed, and I crawled in the bag. And I had one of the best nights sleep that I ever. So I get up in the morning, and when you camp out like that without a tent, and you wake up at dawn, you're covered in dew, everything's wet or damp, you know, and there's a certain smell in the air. So I get out of my bag and I look over here, and he was here, but the raisin box was 10 feet away. So he did one of these. He never left, he just flung it. So I got up and I went over there, and Larry's starting to wake up, and I pick up the raisin box, and I see it's all smeared, clean, licked clean. So I pick up the raisin box, and I'm picking up cellophane and plastic bags with fruit, with pouches everywhere with food. We would just like take honey and put it on the bread, and eat that, a couple sunflower seeds and nuts. And I'm picking this up, and I said, well, there, the bear ate the raisins and everything else. And he rolls over and he goes, are you high, Scarlett? What good would it do to bury the raisins? No, the bear ate the raisins. And he couldn't get out of the bag fast. He was like, picture John Lennon with a beard and shoulder-length hair, and he didn't have his white rimmed glasses on because he was in bed. What? He did one of them. What are you talking about? Scarlett, he used to do this. What? My friend Larry, when he got excited. So I told him about the bear, and I showed him that you can't make this shit up. You know, here's the box, here's the bread's all gone, here's the honey. He left us an inch of honey, he couldn't get that out. So we opened that up, and I think we each took a slug of honey and killed that, and we probably got him to smoke a cigarette after that. He didn't smoke, but I'm sure we did that. And the only thing I guess there was left to do after that was, pack up our stuff and walk up Old Coast Road for a mile till we got to Highway 1. And when we got up there, we just waited for the next van and climbed in it and headed for LA, which is where we ended up a couple days later. We did stay one more day in the park, some miles down. But I often think that how my life might be different if he hadn't growled when he did. I was going to put that flashlight on. And my life would be totally different, and so would Larry's, if I turned that light on. That was a big circle.